Africa needs to shift the narrative. We need to start looking at the narrative, moving away from the narrative where we're always talking about the problem and start stating the problem while acting on the solution. If we state the problem, we should act on the solution. Because the tendency has always been that we probably over talk about the problem and we don't go to act on the solution. One of the major problems of Africa is the fact that Africans or Africa is always waiting. Africa is always waiting. In other words, Africa is always dependent. Africa is always in the expecting corner of the world. And this is a consequence, like one of your viewers indicated much earlier. It's a consequence of mindset. It's a consequence of mindset. You find children at 25 to 30 years, they're still waiting for parents to provide solutions. You would find communities waiting for governments. You would find governments, African governments especially, waiting for solutions from the people who are the root of the problem. I'm a lecturer from the University of Education, Ghana. Currently, I'm a senior research scholar at the University of Electronic Science and Technology of China. I'm a specialist in fiber optics and laser engineering. Basically, at my research, we develop technologies for agriculture, medical, and defense applications. I'm also the CEO of AfroBrains Ideas. Now, foreign solutions brought to Africa are always designed to avoid or hide the real problem. Now, just in passing, some Africans and African governments, we have to separate them, because the truth about the whole thing is that Africans and African governments are people in different worlds. So they're always waiting for some miracle vaccine in the current situation in which we find ourselves. They're waiting for some miracle vaccine, when Africans already know that the drugs that have been recommended to fight COVID-19 are all anti-malarial drugs. Africans already know that one of the reasons, as presented by scientists, which explains the disparity in the statistics from Africa, which is far lower than the rest of the world, is because of previous exposure of sub-Saharan Africans to those recommended drugs. Africans already know that Artemisia has been tested and shown to be more effective with no known side effects in the fight against malaria. Based on all this knowledge, it doesn't require black magic to know that Artemisia has the potential to improve resistance to COVID-19 infection. Now, it is important that at this point we note that I'm not saying here that Artemisia is a cure for COVID-19. But what I'm saying is that I will prefer to boil Artemisia and drink, or boil the tea and drink 3 times a day, than allow someone to inject a laboratory cooked chemical into my body when that same person cannot inject it on his friends and family. Africa needs to stop grumbling, as a matter of fact. We need to stop grumbling about what they stole, what lies they made, what history they wiped out, or what Bible they manipulated. We need to stop grumbling about all those things. Guess what? Because they are not done. They are not done. They keep doing it. They are still planning it. As you keep grumbling, they're planning the next. So your act of grumbling is not a sustainable solution. It's not even a solution. We must begin to make productive conversations about the little things we are doing. how we can form small groups, teams, and set up mini factories. Why not major factories? How we can force our leaders using our local laws to always act in the interest of the people. I suggest we start this one by changing and swearing in the courts using our ancestral shrines. It will make a great change. We as Africans should start talking about the ideas and the cultures that we must empower. We need to discuss how to build the mindset of possibilities despite our circumstances. Now, today we're talking here about agro processing and energy solutions.
Yes.
This is an interesting area because we're trying to communicate in another man's language the need for Africans to start looking at how we can convert or add value to the agricultural products that we have from our farms. How we can add value on these products in such a way that it is going to give us a better life, if not that of all the communities around us. Now, before we go ahead, let's just have a glance on what exactly are the values in question, because life is all about values. Now, after we harvest our products from our farms, be it animal product or be it plants product, when we harvest these products from our farms, they have a value as the products. When we process them, probably if we had soya beans, maybe we process them into yogurt, we give more value to it. That is one, those ones are well known. The value which most Africans have not put their attention on is the organic value of the products on the continent. The organic value is where most Africans are still not conscious about. A very broad survey resulted in an observation that about organic products are about 70% more valuable, meaning that the price is about 70% much more than non-organic products.
True.
That 70% is quite a lot. However, this depends, of course, on the seasons, and of course, it depends on the geographical locations. But the fact that it's stated at 70% means that it's quite a lot. If you can produce, if you can have a product that is 70% more valuable in Africa than another product that is the same product produced elsewhere in the world, what does that mean? It is taking you towards a currency. And I want to repeat this. Organic foods will become a currency in the near future. Organic food will become a currency in the near future. I didn't say may become, I said will become a currency in the near future. How is this going to happen? More people are getting aware of the dangers associated with genetically modified foods or non-organic foods. Remember, genetically modified foods are just a part of non-organic foods, because you can equally still have foods that are not genetically modified, but they are still non-organic. You can take an organic seed and you plant it and you use fertilizers, certain chemical fertilizers that will go to poison the food. Though the phenotype, the looking of the food will look as though it is quite good. It looks quite good, but it's never what it looks like. Things are never what they look like. So this is a typical example. We can watch on TV. We can see foods on the shelves of supermarkets and food stores. They look so bright, they look so shiny, and they look all that. They are not what they look. The genetic modification does not affect the phenotype. It only affects the chemistry of the plants. So this is a very dangerous thing. And the more people get to know about this, the more people get to understand that even as human beings, what we eat will change the way our children or our children's children will become. The food we eat today will affect. Science has proven it clearly that the kind of food we eat, because of the hormones that have been injected in the animals and the kind of fertilizers that are used by the plants, these hormones have the possibility of actually causing a mutation in the human body. And this is very bad. Though the mutation could be negative or positive, but if it has to be negative, then it's going to be detrimental to human being. Imagine you have a child and the child has characteristics that you are not able to explain. So it's dangerous. So let's imagine let's just try to imagine why the Chinese are rushing to Africa and gaining land. The reason is very simple. They have exhausted all their lands. Their lands are very exhausted. These people are very destructive. I mean, destructive. Go to Ghana if you want to find out. Go to Ghana. They have gone into Ghana. They have destroyed not just the surface of the land, because they go to lands. They destroy the surface after bribing probably a few politicians. They destroy the surface, and then that's not all. They destroy the waters, because they use mercury, and this mercury they use for mining of gold. Because normally when you put mercury into a container that has particles of gold, the mercury will attract the particles of gold, and then it will settle to the bottom, and then you'll be able to vaporize to obtain the gold from the mercury. But the danger here is that the water now becomes infected with the mercury, and the children who drink water downstream will now start showing signs of what? Poisoning. It's been happening. The people are weak. They know these things happen, but somehow they are able to find their way. You see, they also do what we call cloud seeding. Cloud seeding, where they use airplanes, and then they spray chemicals, silver iodide, potassium iodide, and a couple of other chemicals, probably solid carbon dioxide, into the atmosphere. When they do that into the atmosphere, it crystallizes the water. That is atmosphere with potentials for rain. But the rain, it's not raining at that time. They just want to attract rain. So when they do that, then the rain falls. You know, sometimes I tell them that my grandfather used to call the rain without taking any aeroplanes into the air. So, but this is very poisonous to the environment, because these chemicals that they sprinkle into the environment, what it does is when it falls to the ground, it poisons the food that is growing. And then even though they say it's water, but it poisons the food, but simply because you can't see the chemicals when you're eating the food, it ends up causing a problem in your system. Now, all these things go to tell us that there is a potential in organic farming. There is a potential in organic farming. The bad thing about it in Africa is that some of our leaders might have given some Chinese companies the illusion that the Chinese can walk into a people's nation and maybe bribe a leader while ignoring the people, and somehow they can just do what they like and enslave the people. Well, the youths of Africa, the people of Africa, must begin to remind their leaders and such Chinese companies that a decision taken by such leaders and such companies on the claims that they are representing the people, which is not in the interest of the people, such decisions are definitely illegal, and in some circumstances should be considered as organized crime against the people. One main reason why they believe in such illusion is that we do not make them know that our land is more valuable than the money. Because these people are ready to pay any amount of money. They print those things in their factories. They can lie the world about anything and print as much money as possible. These are people who would pay any amount of money because they know that what they are buying has a sustainable value. The value of the lands in Africa is more sustainable than the value of the currency they are paying for. If you take that currency and you keep it, the value of the land will definitely become much more than the value of that currency. It's just a piece of paper. It can command other goods, yes, but you can also take effort to have other goods from that land. So it's probably time for Africans to start realizing that, especially the leaders. I really don't like to talk about the leaders. I'm usually focused on the communities, the people. Africa is not for sale. Now, let's talk back. Let's go back to the substantive issues. We know that the level of chemical pollution in Africa is relatively low, and there is this wax worm, which is found in the wax in our beehives, which can actually digest plastic. And when it digests plastic, we can actually have glycol. Glycol, which is a chemical that is a main chemical in the production of chemicals that are used for cooling systems of cars and refrigerators. Now, we need to start protecting the things that we have. We need to understand what we have to protect and how we have to protect those things. Our farmers should stop collecting free seeds from abroad, because the trick is this: when they bring these seeds from abroad, why would they want to bring seeds? It's very simple. They have to create a balance, because if they have to allow Africa with organic seeds and organic systems, Africa will definitely come to realize that the value of the organic foods are higher than the value of the inorganic foods. And of course, our foods will sell as currency. So they have to infect your agriculture. They have to destroy your agriculture. They have to create that equilibrium in agriculture. They'll give you genetically modified seeds, and you will use these genetically modified seeds. You will destroy your organic seeds with it. And what's going to happen is that there's no way you are going to boast of anything. Even cheap animal food cause mutation. Cheap animal. There are some foods that even I have a friend who recently told me that he fed his dog with frozen chicken, imported frozen chicken, and the dog died within 3 months. And that dog was not the only dog. We can't say they died of something else. They bought the dog together with another person. There may be other things associated with but the dog was already showing sign, and the dog was taken to the veterinary, and it was proven that the dog died of cancer. So the problem, the question is, we are eating this frozen chicken. Do we really know how long these frozen chickens take to become what they are before we're buying them? If there is something you need to stay away from, there are those frozen things that come from abroad. Stay away from as much as possible. This goes to all Africans. You have to stay away from all frozen things from abroad as much as possible, because the things our eyes have seen, I can't say all of it, but the truth about the whole thing is we must learn how to start selecting our food carefully. The best foods on this planet are in Africa. Africa has a variety of medicinal plants. We have to protect that. All this, look at today, we're talking about Artemisia. These are medicinal plants that pharmaceutical companies have been conniving with government officials to destroy farms. There are reports from Cameroon where pharmaceutical companies were conniving with government to destroy farms. Even in Benin and so on, all across Africa. Why? Because they know that if Artemisia is propagated, it will kill the pharmaceutical companies that supply the drugs against malaria. That is the simple reason. Now nature has taken them from the backside, and it's happened that this whole epidemic that is going on, Africans, as a result of past exposure to some of these medications, present an artificial passive immunity, or let me not say immunity, but resistance to infection. So those are some of the things, our medicinal plants, we have to begin to protect them. The African children are being taught only solutions that are only the solution to problems that are found in textbooks. It is high time we begin to open our education and defining it to solve the problems in our environment. A few years back, I read an advert that was inviting students to a program to apply for a 4-year program to be trained as farm technicians. I was shocked that I grew up working in the farm until I completed high school. Somebody needs to work in a farm. That person does not need, especially in Africa, that person does not need to be in a university for 4 years to learn how to work in a farm. It doesn't make sense. Those are some of the things that politicians do, especially the greedy ones. When politicians see that there is high unemployment, they open a new school instead of creating job opportunities. They open a new school and make promises. And they create promises around this school. When you complete this school, you become this. When you complete this school, you become this. They create a new school. And when they create that new school, citizens, innocent citizens, come to this school thinking that this is a new hope. At the end of the day, when they complete, then they start seeing stars. They realize it was all a scam. It still surprises me why our agricultural schools still share the same syllabus, the same certifications as schools abroad or in the West. Those are things that shouldn't happen. We have a different diversity of products. We have a different environment. We have different climate. It is very surprising even that there are certain institutions in Africa that still teach children things that are practiced only in the West. Africa should move out of that. It is long overdue. We have already crossed that line. We cannot go back to that. We must contextualize our educational systems as far as agriculture is concerned, because that is our strength. That is where we can take off. We can take off because the leaders have failed us. We need to focus on the communities. We need to focus on the people on the grassroots. We need to focus on the farms. We need to raise the crops and process them and start making business from there. That is how we are going to build Africa.
Okay.
All these things go to really tell us that there are lots and lots of opportunities. Even if you look at the energy sector, look at look at Nigeria, look at Ghana, you would observe that Nigeria, one of the major problems in Nigeria is energy. The electricity in Nigeria is very inconsistent. You cannot have it your way. Why? Because the energy supply is low. So what is the next thing to do? Nigeria needs to start going into bioenergy, more sustainable energy, bioenergy. And we don't have to wait on the government. And that is the problem. We are always waiting. We don't have to wait on the government. I am very happy because Kenya has the largest bioenergy plant on the continent. And though there is another energy plant on the continent, but that does not belong to the continent. It's in Cote d'Ivoire. There is an energy plant in Cote d'Ivoire, but about 75, if not more, % of that energy plant is owned by French companies. So I consider that the only African energy plant that we have is that in Kenya. So Kenya has an energy plant, and it is the right step. It is the right step, and it is owned by Kenyan companies. It is the right step. And that is the direction that communities should start doing. We cannot wait on the governments. The governments, the people in those places have been captured. The communities need to take responsibility. There are lots and lots of community-based, alternative, sustainable energy solutions available out there, technologies. There are lots and lots of community-based micro projects, agricultural projects that communities can begin to use and process. It's not just about farming and selling products. No, it's about farming and processing. Until we have the energy that we need, it will be difficult for us to move into the processing. That is why this topic today combines agro processing and sustainable energy. Because when we combine agro processing and sustainable energy, it's going to give that solution that Africa can take off from. If our communities, we have wind does not select the place where it blows. Wind is there in all the communities. If we have that much wind in our community, we can be able to use wind energy, which is renewable energy. If it's not a matter of if we have organic materials, so we have, there are lots of local markets, community markets that waste a lot of tomatoes, a lot of fruits that get destroyed because the people don't buy them. We put them into our fermenters, we put them into our digesters, and we digest them, and we get energy out of there. Communities can begin. There are solutions, there are technologies, affordable technologies for African communities, that African communities can begin to deploy these technologies in their communities, saving their communities as groups, as entrepreneurs, as communities as a whole, as mayors, as member of parliament. These are the people that should begin to look at some of these community-based solutions, because sometimes some of the politicians, they get into corruption allegations not necessarily because they misapplied or misappropriated funds, but simply because they don't have the exposure to some of the technologies that are out there that can provide the solution to the challenges of their communities, and at the same time also provide a way in which the community can have a sustainable life. So these are solutions that that are available out there. There are a lot of technologies. If you look at the energy requirements for an average home in the US, it's about 28.9 kilowatts. But if you look at for Africa, I took the typical example of Ghana, it's about 2 kilowatts per hour. What that means is it's about 1 is to 14.5. Now, this is a very huge difference. What that means is that if there is a technology that is applied in the US, an energy technology, this same technology applied in Africa should be able to serve, should be able to reach more people, should be able to solve the problems of more households. So there are solutions out there, especially when it comes to energy solutions, power solutions. There are power solutions out there. Africa is a power store. There are communities in Africa with very high environmental temperatures. There are communities in Africa with a lot of bio waste. There are communities in Africa with a lot of wind. These are all forms of energy. All they need would be the equipment to convert their environmental, natural existence to energy that can serve them and improve their lives, and of course, improve the lives of the generations that will come after them. We have solar energy, which is available, even hydro. There are communities with very little waterfalls in their backyard, and they simply probably cannot realize, they don't realize that they can tap energy from there and run small mills, small factories, small stuff. There are lots and lots of energy in Africa. There are lots and lots, especially when it comes to biogas energy. There's a lot. Biogas generators can actually be of great. Recently, I was working with one entrepreneur from Africa who was setting up a cassava producing a gari producing factory, and when we finished setting up, he said his electricity supply was not reliable. So we prescribed the biogas option to him. And after setting up his biogas and powering his factory, he ended up realizing that he can also sell some of the energy that he produces. And that motivated him, that encouraged him. It became a community property. That is how Africa should begin to go. When we have an energy supply source in a community, this energy supply source will solve most of the problems of the community If it is a matter of academic, if there's a school in that environment, it will supply. If it is a matter of a small factories, small sales points, and it will supply. Electricity is what most of the modern technologies lie on. So it is the way we should continue to go on, and we continue to encourage the people of Africa, especially those who are involved in farming. If you are not involved in farming or agriculture, you should be thinking of it. We encourage them, the politicians, the MPs, the mayors. Some of these mayors, they come, they talk with us, and they tell us that they have challenges in being able to meet up with their budgets, because some of them actually are not exposed to those technologies that they can deploy, especially in agro-processing and alternative energies or sustainable energies that they can deploy in order to make the population to be satisfied and also meet up with their budget requirements.